Welcome back to Witchtober. Today is day 29. So I wanted to talk about Halloween and Samhain and just kind of my thoughts this year. So over the years, I've always struggled keeping these two as like a separate thing, or are they the same thing? And I've always gone back and forth with it since I became a witch. And initially it felt like they were two very different things, where Halloween is fun and it's to scare everybody and it's spooky and creepy, but not like, it's always in a more fantasy way. Like, we're not actually wanting to really be around the scenes that are being like depicted. And that's one of the reasons that I kind of started to pull away from Halloween. I used to be known as like the Halloween person, but over the years I've kind of pulled back from it as I've moved away from like the more kid spaces into the more adult spaces. I don't like what Halloween becomes. Like, I genuinely don't see the appeal for a lot of the like just gore parts of it. I don't see why anyone's getting off on that. It's really morbid and creepy and disturbing that you like that stuff, because if you think that it's real, it's disturbing, but if it's fake, it's fine. Like, what, the disconnect. I can't get on board with it. I don't like the just really intense violence for no reason, just to try and scare you. And like, you know, when you go through like haunted houses where they can touch you, don't like that. I don't understand why it's scary anyways. Like, they're just actors that are paid to be there. It's not really scary to me. It's just awkward and weird. And I don't love when they come at you with like a chainsaw, because like accidents can happen. There's a lot that I'm not a fun person in that way. And so like, I've already started to dislike what Halloween becomes as you move away from the kid spaces where it's fun and it's magic and whimsy and just a little bit of fear and kind of overcoming your fear every year. And then it just becomes like trying to up how much can you get your adrenaline going and how horrifying and graphic can you get. And I just don't like it. I've already hated Halloween for that anyways, but over the years, and even like yesterday, I was driving around at night and there is not as much Halloween. And people have talked about it for a while, that the holidays just aren't what they used to be. And I really started to notice it a lot a few years ago, but this year in particular, like, our next door neighbor usually decorates their whole yard, do a whole thing. They're doing nothing this year. And we aren't doing as much this year either. Mostly because I learned the unfortunate reality that if you live in a place where there is snow, inflatables and like high winds, inflatable thingies just don't work at all. And so that was a bummer, because now I gotta figure out decorating and storage instead of a pretty little box, and then it does the whole yard and it's great. But like, I still have some decorations up, but driving through, it's like 1% of the houses, I swear, decorates at all. And it's very few of those that have like a decent amount of decorating. A lot of them, it's like you put a couple pumpkins on your porch and call it a day. Maybe you put a skeleton in a chair and that's it. And it's just, I remember houses used to have really elaborate decorations, and now they don't. And there'd be multiple houses and it'd be like one or two on an entire street that didn't have anything, and now it's one or two that do. And I remember, and like, granted, I don't watch a whole lot of ads, but like, still, there used to be so many shows every year. They would always have Halloween episodes and Halloween ads, and all of these commercials would be tailored to the season. And now maybe there's a few, but I don't see that many of them. And even like billboards and stuff, like there's not really seasonal ones. And there's not a whole lot of like activities and stuff. It's just, it feels like Halloween is slowly dying. And I'm sure there's places where it's very popular. Salem, for instance, is like exploding with people because it's October. But other places, it's not as big as it used to be, and it sucks. And like, I miss that feeling of Halloween. And maybe when I have kids, it'll be different. But I don't know, there's not that many houses that are decorated to even bother with, really. Like, most of them don't do anything. So like, if you're gonna trick or treat, you're going to a trunk or treat, which is dumb, but whatever. I hated trunk or treat when it started to take over on the day of Halloween. When I was a kid I went to a couple trunk or treats, and it was always like the most random day of the week before Halloween. It would be like the Tuesday before, the Wednesday before, and then you would have actual Halloween night. Nobody was going on Halloween night, and now that's all people do. And like, you know, the witch community is trying a little bit locally. I think there's one shop that has their own trunk or treat on Halloween now, which is cool, but also like, I'm like almost 30, so I probably don't need to go. It'd be kind of cool to do it, but also their parking lot sucks, so I also probably wouldn't go anyways because of that. Like, again, I'm a stickler for terrible parking. I'm not coming to your place. Pick a better location or build it better, because no, if you have a terrible parking situation, I will just drive away. Like that introvert meme where you're like, what's the parking situation? Then it's terrible and you're just like, nah, bye. Like, I'm not gonna deal with that. That is me. I will drive to other places that are so out of the way if they have good parking versus like local, because I need good parking places. Anyways, that's a side tangent. Basically, that like feeling of Halloween, it just seems like it's kind of dying anymore. And I'm leaning more into what the witches do for Samhain, which is really like a mild version because like there's so many themes that you can do for Samhain. That's one that's coming up, and obviously just a couple days because Witchtober is almost over. But I have that planned as a different video. But there's different ways you can look at Samhain. But as a whole, typically you think Samhain and it's ancestor work, and that's what I'm doing. And I've just been leaning more towards that, and that's the only thing I kind of look forward to. Because like, I live in a small town anyways. We don't get that many trick-or-treaters, and it's not that big of a deal. I mean, we get maybe 15 to 20 if we're lucky. And that's counting individuals, not like groups coming. If you count groups, I think it's like 10 maybe. Like, it's not a lot. And so instead, like, I get more fun and enjoyment and just like something to do with ancestor work. Like the idea of holding an ancestor dinner, you know, making a huge meal and all of these different things to invite in our dead and be like, hey, come chill, hang out. Like, that's more fun. Going and visiting our graves every year, that's a bigger tradition than trick-or-treating is anymore. I think I've done it more years than I trick-or-treated at this point. It's getting pretty close. And so, like, I haven't had a fun actual Halloween since I was like 12. And so there's just a certain point at which you just kind of give up on what it used to be and you just start to accept what is. And it's like, you know, I love obviously my decor of Halloween, but like I do it for me and that's it anymore. And really it's starting to morph into like, how am I gonna witchify it? Because it's the only way that it has any meaning. And really, like, I'm more excited for Yule this year than for Halloween, which is a wild thing. I never saw that coming, but here I am. I love Yule more, I think, than I love Halloween, because at least at Yule, you're focusing on the living people, and at Samhain, we're focusing on the dead, and like, there is just a level of grief that comes up every time when, you know, like maybe when you first start, if you don't have a lot of dead people, it's not that big of a deal. It's like, oh, it's like your great grandma that you never met, or you met when you were like 2, you know? But once it's a lot of people that you knew very like close in your life, it starts to change, and it's just this, I get why it's a somber day. I try not to have it be like a super sad day. There's days for mourning, but I usually kind of try to reserve that mostly if you're actively grieving, and then try and just have this be like a celebration of life every year sort of a deal. And again, pulling from the Dia de los Muertos celebrations, it's not a sad thing. Like, if you ever watch the celebrations, and I'm like more tempted to try and go to those, because there are a couple that are being held here in Utah, and I'm like super tempted to just go check them out. But like all things, usually you have to pay, so. And also parking. I don't know where it's at, but I'm tempted because it's like, I want to know. And I think they have a, I'm gonna mispronounce the word so bad, ofrenda, I think. Is that word? Is that the word how you're supposed to pronounce it? I don't know. Their altar, their ancestor altar. And you're like, there's places where you can like bring your photos and have like a big community thing. And then I think there's one that they're having like the actual like true celebration. And it's like, crap. My husband's been learning Spanish. I should have been doing it at the same frickin' time, and he told me to, and I didn't. It's another time that he gets to have the I was right. You know, if you're married, you know that you keep track of those. He's had a couple of those, and oh man. But like, I would love to be able to go and experience it because it sounds fun. It's like the whole parade and like everything for like the people who are in, I think it's just Mexico. I thought it was a few of the other countries did it, but I think it's literally just Mexico and Mexican culture that does it. But obviously we have an influx of y'all, so you bring your celebrations and it's awesome and I love it. And also their food is amazing, so like I want to go because like they have like food trucks and like things to do there too, so you can have like authentic food and everything. But like they have the whole celebration thing coming and I'm like, I want to go. But that sounds more fun than actual Halloween does anymore. And like that to me feels more Samhain related because it's the same theme, right? Like we're still celebrating our ancestors, but in a like lighthearted, fun way of bringing the life to death sort of situation, where a lot of the like witches versions tend to be like really honestly boring. Like I don't want to sit in dead silence with a plate set out for my ancestors and just quietly exist in the house. That's not how my family would be. Like that's just weird. That's not an energy that they're gonna be like intrigued by. But if we're having a party and it's like, hey, come join us, they're way more likely to. So anyways, this is just kind of a rambly topic really, but I wanted to talk about it because I feel like every few years I should just check in on like how I redo the holidays, especially because like now I'm like an adult, but I'm moving towards eventually like wanting to be a mom, and like how will that change from when I was a teenager to adult to mother? That's gonna be an interesting, like, be able to look back and see how it's different. Because I feel like once I have kids and you can bring that magic back alive, it's gonna be different. But if you're trying to create the magic just for yourself, it feels kind of lame, to be honest. Like, I'm kind of doing that for Yule, but also, like, I do have gifts to give. Like, I have my mom and my husband, mostly, that we celebrate with. And that's pretty much it. But, you know, in theory, eventually I will have some like children's and maybe a community to get together with. But yeah, so anyways, till next time, I would love to know your thoughts on Halloween and Samhain, and have you noticed the decline in Halloween, and like how has your views of Samhain changed over the years? I'd love to know in the comments down below. A huge thank you as always to my patrons. If you would like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it's patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I post every single day, and until next time, blessed be.